Hi students, welcome to Lab 3, and in this video tutorial we will further improve our skills by working through another data visualization workflow like in Lab 1. And before start, I firstly want you to review the Tableau workbooks that you have created in Lab 1. Take this workbook for example. Here are the charts that we have created in Lab 1. Do you still remember that when we were creating these charts, we mainly used a function called the showMe function. This is a very handy function that can instantly bring up some basic charts that we wanted, so it was just very brilliant. However, there is one problem with this button. Let me explain to you. So, as written down here, so if we are mainly use showMe as our primary plotting method, we don't really know why the chart is built in that way and how the elements in the chart are put together. What does it mean? It basically means that we don't really know how Tableau works by simply using this button. So in this lab, we'll resolve this problem by move beyond the showMe button and further to explore and navigate the Tableau workspace in order to understand some basic concepts in Tableau. And we are also going to reproduce some of the same charts in Lab 1 by just use some of the more primitive operations rather than the showMe button. And by repeating these two steps, I hope that we will have a better understanding of how Tableau works. Now let's get started. The first step that we are going to do is to prepare the dataset. So if you have completed exercise 2 in Lab 2, you can directly reuse the outputted dataset. If not, we can go to this link to download the dataset we need for this lab. And once again, we need to unzip this file. And we are going to create another workbook to connect to the dataset. Okay, here we have already imported the dataset into our Tableau workbook, and we can review the data here, the data values in the data grid, and we can also go to the worksheet to create our plots. But before we start to plot, I think it's better for us to know some basic concepts in Tableau. For example, in our lab page, in the first visualization, it's mentioned that we need to understand the concepts of dimensions and measures, and also the concepts of continuous and discrete. So let's go back to our visualization. If we check the left-hand side of the Tableau workspace, we will notice that the fields of our dataset has already been divided into two categories. One is measures and another is dimensions. In Tableau, measures are usually metrics or numerical data like a population or income, and they are basically aggregations. That means if we put this population measure into the view, aggregate function will be applied automatically. And we can also change this aggregate function to other functions like average or median. Another interesting thing that I want you to notice is that measures are usually aggregated up to the granularity set by dimensions. For example, if we put the continent dimension into our view in the column shelf, we'll notice that the granularity will also be changed. The same thing will also apply to the year dimension. But the difference is that for the year dimension, it's a line chart, but for the continent dimension, it's a bar chart. The magic behind this is because if you notice the color of the pures here, you will see that The gray color means the PO is in continuous values. And if you mark it as discrete, it will be changed to a blue color. That means it will be in discrete values. For discrete values, that means the numbers are separated and distinct from each other, so it's a bar chart. But for continuous value, that means the numbers are in a range, so it can take on any value in that range. That's the difference. And by explaining the concepts, we also plotted the first visualization in this part, so we can basically save our worksheet into the name of how did the world population grow. And now we can move on to the next part in our lab page. So in this part, we are going to reproduce the area chart that we have already created in Lab 1. And the keywords here is marks. So that means we need to understand the meaning of marks and learn how to use the marks card. So firstly, let's go to the definition of marks. And we can read about what I mean by seeing marks. And according to my understanding, marks are the basic visual elements in a graph or in a chart. And in Tableau, the marks card basically controls the color, the size, the chart types, the text, and the details of your chart. So it controls every aspect of the visual appearance of your chart. And now we can try it out. So let's go to the instructions. So we can basically follow the instruction here to quickly reproduce the chart. Firstly, we create another worksheet. We drag population into the rows and year to the colors shelf. And because we want to know the population in each year for each country, we need to update the granularity using the country dimension. Okay, the default type of the marks are lines, and we want the area chart, so we change the mark type from line to area. Here you go, we got the chart. Quite simple, isn't it? And we can rename our worksheet. So let's just copy the title here. Okay, we have already reproduced this nice area chart. Up to now, we have already get a basic understanding of the most important concepts in Tableau, like dimensions and measures, continuous values and discrete values, and also the concept of marks. So the next step that we are going to do is to deepen our understanding of these concepts by reproduce some other charts in Lab 1. So for example, we can go to the lab page, and yeah. So this part is very simple. We basically need to change the granularity of the last chart we have already produced. So we can go back to Tableau to duplicate the worksheet. And we need to know how the population of each continent changed, rather than the change of the countries. So we rename this first, continent. Yeah, and we can simply produce the chart by replace the country dimension with continent dimension. So we can simply drag it here. And as you can see, the granularity of the chart has changed. And now if we move on, we can see that in this part, we are going to reproduce the baby's movement change in the world. So in this chart, the keyword here is about aggregation. So besides the reproduce of the chart in Lab 1, we also need to add some other kind of aggregation functions to the measure. So let's try. The first thing is to reproduce the line chart. So we create another worksheet and we rename the worksheet into how did baby's movement change in the world. And we can quickly reproduce the chart by drag the children movement measure into the rows shelf, and then the year dimension into the column shelf. And we also need to update the default aggregate function from sum to average. Here you go, we have already reproduced the line chart. And the next step is to add more aggregation functions to the same dimension. So one way is to simply drag the children per woman dimension into the rows shelf again and to change the function to minimum. And the second way is hold Command or Control on your laptop and to drag it. And it will duplicate another PO in the rows shelf. And you can change the aggregate function from minimum to maximum. And now, as you can see, that the difference is that the colors are not the same. So basically, we need to add the measure names to the colors. And now we have reproduced the chart. Okay, so let's continue. And in this part, we are going to produce two maps. So the first one is a field map about how the children movement change over the years in different countries. And the second map is a map that is filled with circles in different sizes and different gradient. So let's try to produce the first one. Firstly, we can create a worksheet and change the name of this worksheet. And here we get a longitude and a latitude being generated automatically from this country dimension. It is because that's a graphic row of this dimension is marked as country and region. So now let's put the longitude measure on the column shelf and the latitude measure to the rows shelf. And now we want to put the country dimension into details. And then we can put the children per woman measure to color. The default aggregate function is incorrect, so we can change it from sum to average. The last step in this chart is to put the year dimension in pages. Okay, so here we have already reproduced the chart, and we can try to play the animation here. Right. As you can see, the gradients of the colors is changing. Okay, now let's try to reproduce the second one here. So we can simply copy this worksheet, and in order to change the map, we firstly need to change the mark type from map to circle. And we also want this map to take the size into account, so we can simply place the children per women measure on the size in max card, and we can then change the default application from sum to average. Then we have got this chart being reproduced. Okay, so far we have finished our video tutorial, and you need to keep in mind that